I found out my husband was stealing from our daughter's medical fund, then discovered he was living a double life. I never thought I'd be one of those people posting their personal tragedy online. But I'm sitting here at 3 a.m., hands shaking, staring at bank statements I can barely comprehend, and I just need to get this out somewhere. Maybe writing it all down will help me make sense of how my entire life imploded in less than a week. 6 days ago, I thought I had a loving marriage. I thought we were a team fighting together for our daughter's life. I thought I knew who I married. I was wrong about everything. My daughter Emma is 8 years old and was diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia 2 years ago. The doctors initially gave us hope with standard treatments, but after the first round failed, we learned she needed an experimental treatment not covered by insurance. We've spent the last year and a half fundraising, taking out loans, and draining our savings to get her the care she needs. Friends, family, even strangers from our community came together to help us raise nearly $380,000 for her treatment fund. It wasn't just the money, it was this beautiful reminder that people care, that we weren't alone in this fight. Emma's treatment was scheduled to begin next month, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. Then last Tuesday, I got a call from the hospital's billing department. There was some confusion about our recent payment. Apparently, the last $50,000 installment we'd sent hadn't cleared. I told the woman there must be some mistake. My husband Mark handles all the medical payments, and he told me just last week that everything was on track. I can check our account right now, I said, pulling up our joint banking app. We have separate personal accounts and one joint account specifically for Emma's medical expenses. I frowned at the screen. The balance was lower than it should have been, much lower. I'll need to talk to my husband, I told the billing coordinator. I'll call you back. I called Mark immediately, but he didn't pick up. Not unusual during his workday, so I texted him to call me as soon as possible. Then I went back to the banking app and started scrolling through recent transactions. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were dozens of withdrawals over the past 6 months, ranging from $2,000 to $15,000, all made by Mark. Money that was supposed to be untouchable. Sacred money. Our daughter's lifeline. By the time Mark got home that night, I discovered he'd taken nearly $175,000 from Emma's medical fund. I was sitting at our kitchen table, printouts of transactions spread before me like evidence at a crime scene, which I guess they were. When he walked in, I couldn't even speak. I just pointed at the papers. His face did something I'll never forget, a strange collapse, like watching someone age 10 years in 3 seconds. He set down his bag, slowly placed his keys on the counter, and sat across from me. I can explain, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Please do. My voice sounded foreign to me, cold and steady when I felt like I was breaking apart inside. I made some investments. They were supposed to pay off quickly. I was going to put it all back, with extra. For Emma. I stared at him. You gambled our daughter's treatment money? Not gambling. Investments. Cryptocurrency. A friend at work has made millions. It was a sure thing. I couldn't process what I was hearing. Where is the money now, Mark? He looked down at his hands. It's gone. The market crashed. But I'm working on getting it back. I have a plan. A plan? Emma starts treatment in 3 weeks. I was screaming now, something I never do. In the back of my mind, I worried our daughter would hear from her bedroom upstairs, where she was watching a movie with headphones on, One Small Mercy. Mark reached across the table for my hand. I pulled away like his touch would burn me. Angela, please. I did this for us, for Emma. I thought I could double the money, get her even better care. Without telling me? Without discussing it with me? The betrayal was so vast I could hardly comprehend it. Every conversation we'd had about Emma's care, every time we'd celebrated another fundraising milestone, all while he was secretly draining the fund. I didn't want to worry you. You've been so stressed with Emma's care, and I thought I could handle this. Handle it? You've stolen our daughter's chance at life. The words hung between us, terrible and true. What followed was hours of circular arguments. Mark swore he could fix it, that he had leads on loans, that his parents might be able to help. I just kept coming back to the same question. How could he do this? How could he look me in the eye every day knowing what he'd done? I sent him to sleep in the guest room. I couldn't bear to look at him. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to tell my little girl that the treatment we'd promised her might not happen. The next morning, I called the hospital to explain the situation and beg for more time. They were sympathetic but firm. We needed to secure funding within 2 weeks or Emma would lose her treatment slot to another patient. I spent the day making desperate calls to everyone I could think of, family members, our bank, even the fundraising coordinator from the charity event our community had held last summer. When Mark came home that evening, he looked almost hopeful. "I talked to my boss about an advance on my year-end bonus," he said. "And my 401k, I can take a hardship withdrawal." "How much?" I asked. "Maybe $60,000, total." His voice was small. Not even half of what he'd taken. Nowhere near what we needed. "What about your parents? You said they might help." Mark's parents were comfortable, not wealthy, but secure. His expression changed, just slightly, but enough for me to catch it. "I'll call them tomorrow," he said, not meeting my eyes. Something about his hesitation triggered an alarm bell in my head. "Mark, have you already asked them for money recently?" The loaded silence told me everything. "How much did they give you? And where did that money go?" I demanded. He swallowed. 40,000. 6 months ago. Money that had never appeared in our accounts. Money I'd known nothing about. "And?" I prompted, a new kind of dread forming. "It's gone too. Same investments." I felt like I was going to be sick. "Is there more you haven't told me?" He wouldn't look at me. "Mark. What else?" "I took out a second mortgage on the house." The room seemed to tilt around me. "You what? How is that even possible? I would have had to sign for that." His silence stretched out, and the implication hit me like a physical blow. "You forged my signature." It wasn't a question. He nodded, tears streaming down his face now. I was desperate. The first investments went bad, and I needed capital to recover the losses. "How much?" My voice was a thread. $120,000. I couldn't breathe. The house we'd bought 7 years ago, the home where Emma took her first steps, where we'd painted her bedroom ceiling with glow-in-the-dark stars, it wasn't even ours anymore. "Get out," I whispered. "Angela, please. Get out." I screamed at this time. "I can't even look at you right now. Just go." He left, and I collapsed on the kitchen floor, sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. That's where my sister found me an hour later when she stopped by to drop off a casserole. Jessica has been my lifeline throughout Emma's illness, watching her during hospital stays, keeping my house running when I couldn't. I told her everything in broken sentences between sobs. She held me and then took charge in that way only older sisters can. "You'll stay with me tonight," she said. "Both you and Emma. I'll help you figure this out." "I can't leave," I protested weakly. "What if Mark comes back?" "Do you want to see him right now?" I shook my head. "Then you're coming home with me. We'll get Emma's medications packed up." That night, after Emma was asleep in my nephew's room, he was away at college, Jessica and I sat at her kitchen table with a bottle of wine and my laptop. "We need to see exactly what we're dealing with," she said. "Check all the accounts." So I did. I logged into everything, our joint accounts, my personal accounts, even our tax records from the previous year. Nothing seemed amiss in my personal account where my teacher's salary was deposited. The joint checking account showed normal household expenses. "What about credit cards?" Jessica asked. I pulled up our credit card statements. We had 2 joint cards, one we used for regular expenses and another for emergencies and travel. The regular card looked normal. But when I logged into the emergency card account, my blood ran cold. The card was maxed out at its $25,000 limit. But it wasn't medical expenses or household emergencies. It was restaurants I'd never heard of, hotel charges, jewelry stores. "Jessica," I whispered, "look at this." She leaned over my shoulder, scrolling through charge after charge. "These are date expenses," she said finally. "Expensive ones." I felt like I might throw up. "He's having an affair." "We don't know that for sure," she said, but her tone lacked conviction. My hands moved mechanically over the keyboard, opening our cell phone account. We shared a family plan, and I rarely looked at the detailed call logs. Now I pulled up Mark's recent calls and texts. There was one number that appeared dozens of times a day, including late-night calls that sometimes lasted hours. Calls that must have happened while I was asleep, or when he said he was working late. "Can you search this number?" Jessica asked. I nodded numbly and pasted it into a search engine. Nothing came up, but there was an option to reverse look up the number for $1.99. I paid it without hesitation. The name that popped up made the room spin around me. Caitlin Williams. Not a stranger. My daughter's former nurse from her initial hospital stay. The woman who had held my hand and cried with me when we first received Emma's diagnosis. The woman who had given us her personal number in case we ever needed anything. The woman who had left the hospital 6 months ago for a job at a private practice. Oh my God, Jessica breathed. I grabbed my phone and did something I never thought I would do. I texted Caitlin. This is Angela Parker. I know about you and Mark. I know what you've been doing while my daughter is dying. The typing bubbles appeared almost immediately, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, a message came through. Angela, I am so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Mark told me you were separated. The phone slipped from my hands and clattered to the floor. Mark had told her we were separated. While I was sleeping beside him every night. While I was thanking him for being my rock through our daughter's illness. Jessica picked up my phone and continued the conversation. He lied. We're not separated. And he's been stealing money from our daughter's medical fund to finance your relationship. The response was quick. What are you talking about? Mark is wealthy. He owns investment properties all over the city. I grabbed the phone back. Mark is a software developer. We have one house, which he took a fraudulent second mortgage on. He has no investment properties. My phone rang immediately. Caitlin was calling. With shaking hands, I answered and put it on speaker. Angela, she said, her voice trembling, I swear I didn't know. Mark told me he was separated and finalizing a divorce. He said you knew about us. He said the money was his, from his real estate investments. A hysterical laugh bubbled up from my chest. There are no real estate investments. But, her voice faltered, I've seen the properties. He's taken me to them. He has keys. What properties? Apartment buildings downtown. A lake house in Wisconsin. He said that's why he couldn't introduce me to his family yet. You were still working out custody arrangements for Emma, and he didn't want to complicate things. The lake house. My parents' lake house that they let us use occasionally. The apartments downtown, probably buildings his company's software clients owned, places he had legitimate access to for work but certainly didn't own. How long? I asked, my voice hollow. 8 months, she whispered. But Angela, I swear I wouldn't have touched him if I thought you were still together. I'm not that person. 8 months. When Emma's condition had worsened. When he'd started working late more often. When I needed him most. Has he given you money, Caitlin? Jessica cut in. A long pause. He bought me some gifts. And he put a down payment on my condo 3 months ago. How much? My voice was barely audible. $70,000. The room tilted again. $70,000 of my daughter's treatment money had gone to buy his girlfriend a condo. I'll pay it back, Caitlin was saying, her voice frantic now. I'll sell the condo. I had no idea, Angela. You have to believe me. I hung up without responding. Then I turned to Jessica and did something that shocked us both. I started laughing. A horrible, broken sound that quickly dissolved into sobs. He's been living a complete double life, I choked out between gasps. While I've been sitting in hospital rooms watching our daughter fight for her life, he's been playing sugar daddy with her medical fund. Jessica held me as I fell apart completely. When I could finally breathe again, she handed me a glass of water and said the words I needed to hear. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. But it didn't matter whose fault it was. The reality remained, my daughter's treatment was in jeopardy, our house was mortgaged to the hilt, and my marriage was a lie. I had never felt so completely alone. The next morning, I woke up on Jessica's couch with swollen eyes and a moment of blessed amnesia before reality crashed back. I checked my phone to find 17 missed calls and dozens of texts from Mark, ranging from apologetic to desperate. Please come home. We need to talk. I can explain everything. I never meant to hurt you or Emma. I love you. Please. The final text, sent at 4:23 a.m. I know I've destroyed everything. I'll fix this somehow. Emma will get her treatment. I promise. Empty words from a man whose promises meant nothing now. I also had 3 missed calls from Caitlin and a text. I've contacted a realtor. I'm listing my condo today. Every penny will go to Emma's treatment. I am so sorry. At least someone was taking action instead of just apologizing. Emma woke up confused about why we were at Aunt Jessica's house. I told her we were having a little girl's vacation while Daddy was on a work trip. The lie tasted bitter, but I couldn't tell my immunocompromised child that her father had gambled away her medical treatment. Not yet. Maybe not ever. After breakfast, while Emma was watching cartoons with Jessica's dog curled beside her, I made the hardest call of my life. I phoned my parents, who lived in Arizona, and told them everything. My father's stunned silence and my mother's quiet weeping nearly broke me again. They had contributed $50,000 to Emma's fund, money from their retirement savings. "We're coming," Dad said finally. "We'll be on the next flight." "Dad, you don't have to." "Yes, we do. You need support, and Emma needs her treatment. We'll figure this out together." I spent the rest of the day in a blur of phone calls, to our bank, confirming the second mortgage, real and fraudulent, to a lawyer Jessica knew, who agreed to meet me the next day, to Emma's doctors, explaining that we were working to secure the remaining funds but might need some flexibility. By evening, Mark's calls had grown frantic. I finally answered, if only to stop the constant ringing. "Angela, thank God. Please come home. I've been going out of my mind." "I'm not coming home. Neither is Emma." "Where are you? Let me come to you. Please, I need to see you, to explain." "There's nothing to explain, Mark. You stole from our daughter. You created a fake life with another woman. You've been lying to me for months, maybe years, for all I know. It's not like that. Caitlin was a mistake. I got caught up in something I couldn't control. But you and Emma are my real life, my family." His desperation might have moved me once, but now it just exhausted me. "If we're your real family, why did you steal from us? Why did you put your girlfriend's down payment above your daughter's life?" "I'm going to make it right," he insisted. "I've been making calls all day. I have a plan." "Like all your other plans? The investments? The second mortgage?" My voice was rising, and I stepped outside Jessica's house so Emma wouldn't hear. "Your plans have ruined us, Mark. I've called my parents. They're taking out a home equity loan. It's not enough, but it's a start. And Caitlin called me, she's selling her condo." Of course he'd talked to Caitlin. They'd probably aligned their stories by now. Too little, too late. "What does that mean? Angela, please. Are you leaving me?" The question hung in the air. Until that moment, I hadn't fully allowed myself to consider what came next. My focus had been entirely on securing Emma's treatment. But now the question demanded an answer. "I don't know what I'm doing, Mark. I just know I can't look at you right now without wanting to scream. You've betrayed us in every possible way." "I love you," he whispered. "I love Emma more than my life. I made terrible mistakes, but please don't take my family away on top of everything else." "You took yourself away," I said quietly. "The moment you decided our daughter's life was less important than impressing your girlfriend." I ended the call and stood in Jessica's driveway, tears streaming down my face. The magnitude of what had happened, what was still happening, threatened to pull me under completely. My phone pinged with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Angela, this is Robert Williams, Caitlin's father. We need to talk." I nearly ignored it, but something made me respond. "About what?" His reply came quickly. "About helping your daughter. Caitlin told us everything. We want to help make this right." I stared at the message, wondering if this was some kind of cruel joke. But I had nothing left to lose. "I'll meet you tomorrow. Tell me when and where." Edit: I didn't expect this post to get so much attention. Thank you for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions, yes, I've frozen all our accounts and changed the passwords. Yes, I've spoken to a lawyer. And no, I haven't decided about divorce yet, one crisis at a time. I met Robert and Patricia Williams, Caitlin's parents, at a cafe near Jessica's house the next morning. My parents had arrived late the night before and were staying with Emma while I handled what was becoming a complex web of financial and legal issues. The Williams were in their 60s, dressed neatly and looking visibly distressed. They stood when I approached their table, and Patricia impulsively reached for my hands. "Angela, we are so deeply sorry for what has happened," she said, her eyes red-rimmed. "We raised our daughter better than this." I gently extracted my hands and sat down across from them. "I appreciate you meeting me, but I'm not sure what you think you can do." Robert cleared his throat. "Caitlin told us everything last night. About the affair, about Mark's lies, and about your daughter's medical fund." He looked genuinely pained. "We were shocked, to say the least. Caitlin has always been an ethical person, a caring nurse. But that doesn't excuse her actions." "No, it doesn't," I agreed quietly. "Mark told her he was wealthy from real estate investments," Patricia added. She had no reason to doubt him. Part of me wanted to shout that she'd had every reason to doubt him, starting with the fact that he claimed to be separated from a wife he was living with. But I held my tongue. This wasn't about Caitlin. "We understand that Mark provided a substantial down payment for Caitlin's condo," Robert continued, "money that apparently came from your daughter's medical fund. Caitlin is already working with a realtor to sell the property, but that could take time, and from what she's told us, time is something your daughter doesn't have." I swallowed hard. Emma's treatment slot will be given to another patient if we can't secure funding in the next 10 days. Robert nodded grimly. That's why we're here. Patricia and I have discussed this at length. We want to help bridge the gap until Caitlin's condo sells and other funds become available. I stared at them, not comprehending. We have savings, Patricia explained gently. Quite substantial savings that we've been fortunate enough to accumulate over our working lives. We'd like to provide you with an interest-free loan to ensure your daughter's treatment isn't delayed. My eyes filled with tears. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Robert looked me straight in the eye. Because our daughter's poor choices shouldn't cost your daughter her chance at life. That's not a burden any parent should bear. We spent the next hour working out the details. The Williams would loan me $200,000, enough to cover what was missing from Emma's fund and provide a small cushion for additional expenses. I would repay them as funds became available, from the sale of Caitlin's condo, from Mark's parents' home equity loan, from any other sources we could cobble together. I left that meeting in a daze, overwhelmed by the kindness of strangers who had more right to hate me than help me. As I drove back to Jessica's house, my phone rang with Mark's number. I almost ignored it, but a nagging worry about Emma made me answer. Angela, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all morning. I had a meeting. I didn't elaborate. With who? Your lawyer? His voice was tight with anxiety. No, actually. With Caitlin's parents. A long silence. What? Why would you meet with them? Because they offered to help with Emma's treatment fund. Unlike you, they're actually doing something constructive. I'm doing everything I can. He protested. I've been calling everyone we know. My boss agreed to the bonus advance. My parents are getting the loan. It's not enough, Mark. You've taken over $300,000 when you add it all up, the medical fund, your parents' money, the second mortgage, the credit cards. Your solutions are drops in the bucket. Another silence. Then, in a small voice, what did Caitlin's parents say? They're loaning us enough to cover Emma's treatment. They're decent people cleaning up the mess you and their daughter made. I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say. The money will be in the account tomorrow, and I'm calling the hospital to confirm Emma's treatment schedule. Can I see her? He asked, his voice breaking. Please, Angela. She's my daughter too. I need to see her. The plea pierced through my anger. Whatever Mark had done, Emma adored her father. Denying her his presence while she faced grueling treatment seemed unnecessarily cruel. You can see her at the park near Jessica's tomorrow afternoon. 2:00. Don't be late, and don't upset her. As far as she knows, you've been on a work trip. Thank you, he breathed. And Angela? I know it doesn't mean anything right now, but I am so sorry. For everything. I ended the call without responding. Sorry didn't begin to cover what he had done. Sorry wouldn't rebuild the trust he had shattered or erase the betrayal that had rewritten our entire history. The next day, I watched from a bench as Mark pushed Emma on the swings, her laughter carrying across the playground. He was attentive and gentle, the same devoted father he'd always appeared to be. The same man who had stolen her medical fund and risked her life. The contradictions made my head spin. How could he love her so obviously and still have done what he did? How could the man who held her hand through every doctor's appointment be the same one who used her medical fund to finance an affair? I didn't have answers. I wasn't sure I ever would. Over the next week, a flurry of activity consumed my days. The Williams loan came through, and Emma's treatment was officially back on schedule. Mark's parents arrived from Ohio with $45,000 from their home equity loan and crushing disappointment in their son. Caitlin's condo went on the market with an aggressive pricing strategy meant to ensure a quick sale. Through it all, I functioned on autopilot. Take Emma to pre-treatment testing. Meet with financial advisors. Consult with the lawyer about separating our finances and potentially filing for divorce. Smile reassuringly whenever Emma asked when we were going home. The truth was, I didn't know if we would ever go home. The house held too many memories now, too many lies. But Emma loved her room, her neighborhood, her routines. Another impossible choice in a series of impossible choices. Mark continued to see Emma regularly, always in my presence or my parents'. He brought her small gifts and maintained the fiction of a work trip that had extended due to problems at the office. He tried to talk to me several times about us, about the future, but I shut those conversations down. I couldn't think about our marriage with Emma's treatment looming. The night before Emma's treatment was set to begin, I stayed with her in her hospital room while my parents went back to Jessica's to rest. Emma had been quieter than usual during admission, the reality of what lay ahead finally sinking in. Mom? She said as I tucked her into the hospital bed. Is Dad going to be here tomorrow? Yes, sweetheart. He'll be here first thing in the morning. She nodded, looking relieved. Then, in the perceptive way of children who see more than we give them credit for, are you and Dad fighting? My heart clenched. What makes you ask that? You don't talk to each other anymore. Not like before. And you look sad when he's around. I stroked her hair, buying time to formulate an answer that wouldn't burden her. Dad and I are going through some grown-up problems right now, but we both love you very much. That will never change. Is it because of my treatment? Because it costs so much money? God, how could she think that? I held her face in my hands. Emma, listen to me. None of this is your fault. Not one bit. Your dad and I would spend every penny we have and more to make you better. The cost doesn't matter. She studied my face with those solemn eyes that had seen too much for her 8 years. But money makes people fight. That's what Lily's parents fought about before they got divorced. The D word hung in the air between us. I hadn't made any decisions about divorce yet, but children have radar for these things. Honey, right now the only thing that matters is getting you better. Everything else, money, grown-up problems, that's all stuff we can figure out later. Okay? She nodded, seemingly satisfied, and closed her eyes. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby. More than anything in this world. I sat beside her bed long after she fell asleep, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. The anger that had sustained me for the past 2 weeks gave way to a bone-deep exhaustion. I was so tired of being strong, of holding everything together while my world fell apart. A soft knock at the door startled me. Mark stood in the doorway, hesitant to enter without permission. What are you doing here? I whispered. I thought you were coming in the morning. I couldn't sleep, he admitted, his eyes moving to Emma's sleeping form. I needed to see her. To see both of you. I didn't have the energy to send him away. She just fell asleep. He nodded and took the chair on the opposite side of Emma's bed. We sat in silence for a long time, co-parents maintaining our vigil, husband and wife separated by an unbridgeable chasm. Caitlin's condo sold, he said finally, voice barely audible over the beeping monitors. Full asking price. The buyers agreed to a rush closing. Good. The Williams will get their money back soon, then. Angela. He seemed to struggle with what to say next. I know I have no right to ask this, but where do we go from here? As a family? I looked at him across our daughter's hospital bed. The man I had loved for 15 years. The man who had held my hand through labor, who had taught Emma to ride a bike, who had promised to love and cherish me until death parted us. The man who had betrayed us both so completely. I don't know, Mark. I honestly don't know if I can ever trust you again. He nodded, eyes glistening. I understand. But I want you to know I'm getting help. I've started therapy. Twice a week. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. It wasn't about not loving you or Emma. I think I got addicted to the escape. From the fear, from watching Emma suffer and not being able to fix it. Part of me understood. The past 2 years had been a particular kind of hell, watching our vibrant daughter struggle through pain and sickness. There had been times I'd wanted to escape too. But I hadn't betrayed my family in the process. An explanation isn't an excuse, I said quietly. I know that. I'm not asking for forgiveness, not yet. I just want a chance to prove I can be better, be the husband and father you both deserve. Emma stirred in her sleep, a small whimper escaping her lips. Both of us leaned forward instinctively, hands reaching to comfort her. Our fingers brushed across the hospital blanket, and I didn't pull away immediately. She asked me tonight if we were getting divorced, I whispered. Like Lily's parents. Pain flickered across Mark's face. What did you tell her? That right now we're focusing on her getting better. That everything else can wait. He nodded slowly. Is that what you really think? That everything else can wait? I considered the question. The betrayal was still raw, the wound still bleeding. But divorcing Mark while Emma was fighting for her life seemed like adding trauma upon trauma. I think, I said carefully, that I need time. We start Emma's treatment tomorrow. That has to be my priority, our priority, for the next few months. I can't make life-altering decisions while she's so vulnerable. And after? He asked, hope and fear mingling in his voice. After, we'll see where we stand. I'm not making any promises, Mark. You broke something fundamental between us. I don't know if it can be repaired. But you're willing to try? Eventually? I looked at our sleeping daughter, so small in the large hospital bed, so brave in the face of what was coming. I'm willing to consider it. For Emma's sake, and maybe, someday, for ours. But it would take real change, not just words. I understand, he said quietly. That's more than I deserve. We lapsed into silence again, the steady rhythm of the monitors the only sound in the darkened room. I didn't know what the future held for us as a couple, but I knew we would face Emma's treatment as a united front. She needed both her parents, whatever shape our family might take afterward. As the night deepened, I found myself thinking about the Williams, strangers who had stepped forward to help my daughter when my own husband had failed her. About Jessica, who had opened her home without question. About my parents, who had come running at the first sign of trouble. The betrayal had shattered my trust, but it had also revealed the strength of the community around us. Maybe that was something to build on. Maybe there was a path forward through the wreckage of what had once been my perfect life. Emma's treatment would begin in just a few hours. After that would come months of uncertainty, of hope and fear intertwined. And beyond that? I didn't know. Couldn't know. But sitting in that hospital room, watching over my daughter with the husband who had broken my heart, I allowed myself to acknowledge one truth. Sometimes love means fighting for a second chance, and sometimes it means knowing when to walk away. I didn't yet know which path I would choose. But for the first time since discovering Mark's betrayal, I felt something like peace with the uncertainty. Whatever happened next, Emma would get her treatment. I would find my strength. And life, in some form, would go on. Update: it's been 2 months since I wrote this post. Emma's treatment is going well, better than expected, according to her doctors. She's responding to the therapy with minimal side effects, and we're cautiously optimistic. As for Mark and me, we're in counseling. Separately and together. I'm not ready to forgive him, maybe I never will be completely. But I'm trying to understand. The affairs, there were others before Caitlin, I've since learned, stemmed from deeper issues than I ever realized. Mark's therapist has diagnosed him with a gambling addiction that evolved into increasingly risky behavior in all areas of his life. It doesn't excuse what he did, but it helps explain it. He's in recovery now, attending GA meetings and working with a financial advisor to rebuild our shattered finances. Caitlin's condo sold, and the Williams got their money back. Mark's parents' loan will take longer to repay. As for us? I don't know yet. Some days I look at him and see only the betrayal. Other days, I catch glimpses of the man I married, especially when he's with Emma. We're taking it one day at a time. The house is on the market, too many painful memories. We're looking for something smaller, more manageable with our new financial reality. A fresh start, maybe. I've learned that there's no manual for navigating betrayal of this magnitude. No clear path through the wreckage. But Emma is getting better. I am getting stronger. And that, for now, is enough.